Good morning. Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. Thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Of course, we'll sample your feedback towards the tail end of this broadcast. We are talking about the weekly protests now by the opposition, which has had severe effects on businesses in the country. This morning, we are talking to stakeholders. Boniface Gashoka, on my immediate right, is the Secretary General of the Bar, Hoteliers and Liquor Association of Kenya. Good morning, Boniface.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. Kevin Mubadi is the National Chairperson, the Border Association of Kenya. He is with us in studio in his capacity as a stakeholder. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Simon Kimutai is joining us virtually. He is the National Chairperson. Shortly we'll be having him, the Matatu Association of Kenya. And Sami Karanja is the Chief Executive Officer on my far right of the Medium, Small and Micro Enterprises Alliance of Kenya. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and company. And let's begin with the one-day addition to the weekly protests that the opposition will be starting next week. That's the additional day of Thursday, which, according to many stakeholders, is likely going to have an effect on the economy. May I begin with you first, Boniface? For Monday's protest, the opposition started a day in which the opposition started mass anti-government protests. What were the consequences from your evaluation?
Actually, it took us by surprise to see the coming back of demonstrations, and we thought they were going to be peaceful and what have you. But they did what they did, and we're actually counting a very huge loss in terms of the second largest payers of taxes in Kenya. Like, for example, in the manufacturer side, because we have a whole value chain that is from the farmers. We support more than 50,000 farmers in Kenya as an industry. We have distributors, we have manufacturers and retailers whom I represent. On the onset is that on that day only, we lost 2.7 billion shillings.
That is the organization that
worth of business. Okay. That is worth of business. Because of course there was some violence that affected some of our members, and I think majorly is the one of our members was affected in Kisumu, where everything was stolen from the business, and of course we had to shut down because what we sell is comfort and majority of people are interested, and it's very easy to carry a highly valuable product from our place.
Okay.
And we'll discuss more on the greatest impact, but majorly is that we have lost a very huge chunk of money within a day.
Okay.
So if we talk about another week, it is something that is greatly going to affect.
And another day added to the day of protests, even as the opposition ups the ante on the government yesterday. The former Prime Minister Raila Odinga said that they will be holding the protests on Monday and Thursday starting next week, and that they have notified the authorities after delivering their notification note to the Nairobi County Police Commander Adamson Bungei. We're now joined virtually by Simon Kimutai, who is the National Chairperson, Matatu Owners Association of Kenya. Good morning, Simon. What were the consequences on Monday for the industry that you do represent as the National Chairperson?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. And, the effects was felt across the country. I'm sure in every industry that's doing business. In public transport, our work majorly is to move people from one destination to the other. And due to fear and disruptions caused by the Maandamano, there were very minimal movements. Majorly, it affected Nairobi, the western region, and mostly Kisumu, Migori, Kisii, Siaya, and majorly it was Nairobi. Nairobi was affected because that's the hub, that's the center of economic activities in the country. And we, of course, when there are no movements, we don't move our vehicles, and we don't stock goods like any other people doing business. So movements were completely affected, and so when people don't move, we don't make any money. And this translated itself to hundreds of millions, which was lost in that particular day. And, Matatu, when it stops in a day, the insurance tickles, and the loans also move in place for those who have acquired loans from financial institutions. So you find that the effects were enormous. That's what I would generally say.
Okay. Sami Karanja, coming to you as the Chief Executive Officer of the Medium, Small and Micro Enterprises Alliance of Kenya, then having an extra day of the weekly protests as the opposition announced, how adverse will that be if, talking about one day, according to the Deputy President, the country lost billions of shillings?
Thank you, Ayub. I think it's very unfortunate that we politicize the business sector. And politicians are taking advantage of what's happening so that they can be able to destabilize the economy. And when they are doing that, they are directly affecting Wanjiko. And that's very unfortunate because you can hear the staggering amounts of money that we are losing on a daily basis. So where is the sincerity of what the Maandamano wants to achieve? So when you look at that, I think I'm going to use a very strong word. It's political. It's economic sabotage, because when you look at the amount of people who affect the value chain, you see, look at the hoteliers, look at the transport industry, look at what we do, because I represent Mama Mboga, the micro, small, medium enterprises, the hawkers, they didn't go to work. The street vendors, wale wanatuzianga mizigo hapo kwa street highways, they didn't go to work. So when you're looking at that, I think we should be able to approach this situation in a very different and a very sober manner, because we are looking at a downfall of the economy. Look at what we have come through as a government. We have been having an electioneering period, and before that, it started early. Then we had COVID. Now, starting from COVID to what we are experiencing right now, it's like the politicians want to bring the economy to its knees, and I think it's very unfortunate, and they should look at avenues they can be able to interact and dialogue the way they need to dialogue, and so that they can make sure they cushion the economy. Right now we were thinking that we are already past the electioneering process, and it's a high time now we sit down and as stakeholders and start building the economy. So look at what is happening even in the region. Other countries are are going ahead. Look at what's happening in Tanzania. Their Tanzanian shilling is getting stronger. They don't have issues with dollars. Okay. Their people are doing business, their people are transacting, but here in Kenya we are held at ransom. I think it's a very unfortunate situation. Okay,
well, I'll come to you, my man, Kevin. But Sami, when you place responsibility on the political establishment, and giving the example of Tanzania, I mean, Kenya has more progressive constitution, one of the most admired, transparent. Yet again, we have this problem that often is perpetual after every electoral cycle. Then is the problem the political class, and how do you think they can approach this to address what's on our plate at the moment?
Democracy is freedom of expression, and it comes with responsibility. And I think the political arena or the politicians should be patriotic enough to take this country into their hands, because when you look at the Constitution, the Chapter 1 of the Constitution, the sovereignty of this country is in Wanjiko, the citizenry. And so it's a delegated responsibility, and they should take it at that. It's not a person's push to have their own personal initiatives being pushed through. It is a collective vision of this country. And that is why the politicians, we are taking them to task, because look at what is happening. So, yes, a particular Mrengo won the elections. Now we have President Ruto has won he's the president. Right. Now look at what is happening with the opposition. So the fighting that they are fighting, is it really for Wanjiko? And that is why we are looking back, and all the stakeholders are sitting on this table, and some of us, and others, the transport industry is also on the table, and we are looking at the adverse effect of it. So when I'm looking at that, we are saying the politicians must be able to be patriotic enough, Ayube, and be very sincere with Kenyans, because I do not think they are pushing for the welfare of Kenyans. I think they have what you call a selfish move, so that they can have probably a sitting on the table. But when you're looking at that, it is adversely affecting the businesses. And these people are the movers and shakers of the economy.
Kevin, from your end, what were the very immediate consequences the protest on Monday has had on the industry that you represent?
Thank you very much. First of all, on our side as the border riders in this country, the immediate effect is that day some of our members slept hungry, because as a border sector, we depend on hand to mouth, because the number of motorbikes has increased. So even the daily income is very little. And considering the loans that these people have, every day you have to pay your loan. And if there's no movement of people in the country, then it means as a border rider, you are not going to earn anything. And when we look at Monday's situation, everybody was at home. People were afraid. There was no movement. Even if you looked on your screens, you never saw any motorcycle in the CBD moving up and down carrying people. So that is a big challenge to us as the border sector. And our urge is that let the government and the opposition find a solution, because they all serve the Kenyan people, and the peace of the country is more important than anything else. So as the sector, we are much affected, and we hope and pray that things will go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Boniface, coming to you then. I mean, now that there's going to be an extra day of protests by the opposition, I mean, are we looking into, you talked about 2 billion earlier on, are we looking into an increase in losses that are likely going to be witnessed going forward due to the deadlock at the moment between the government and the opposition that's affecting businesses?
Actually, as an industry, there is even some other facets that have introduced themselves, which is increase in operation costs. For example, even today as we are living, we've invited a few security companies to come and discuss and have partnership. The fixed cost on security has really gone up, because we have to work around a way in which we're going to protect our businesses from the incidences that we have seen. And we are talking about increasing the number of security companies, vetting them to ensure that there are people who can stand. We're talking about increasing the watchmen. We're talking about increasing CCTVs and what have you. That is, we have to look for a way for us to hire more people and use more resources to protect our businesses on those particular days, which were costs that were not there. And these are costs that have to be fixed, because it is something, because we've been told that this thing will continue and the days have already been given. The other issue that we're looking at is insurance. I serve an organization or an association that has 54,000 members in Kenya. And majority of them may not be insured due to political issues and what have you. But from the risk that we are looking at, even as the economy is going to go down because of obvious reasons, the political issues, we have to urge our people to incur an extra cost to insure our business. When you go for an insurance product at a time when the political risk is this high, of course expect that the premiums are going to go up. Mm-hmm. So we are looking at a situation where we will incur more because of maandamano. Now leave even the losses that we are going because of closure. We'll have to incur huge costs, very uncertain costs, because when you look at most of the places where we have, like for example in Nairobi, we don't have those closed establishments that we used to have. Most of the establishments are open. So the risk is very high on our industry. And that is why we are calling for a sober conversation between the two parties.
And when you talk about hiring more security personnel to safeguard your businesses, I mean, you can't do that. And after spending that extra coin, then still there is no assurity and guarantee, because of the uncertainty, still people can decide to stay away, yet you have invested again an extra coin. Isn't that a complication of already a complex problem?
Actually, even the security that because what I've actually said is this: we are planning to invite different security companies to come and meet with us, for us to come up with a way. Because if you look at 300 people, or the number of people who are demonstrating, and we're praying God and wishing them to demonstrate peacefully, coming into a premise like what happened in Kisumu, with all the manner of things, that video is out and such kind of a thing, there is no security company that can secure an investment when such kind of people are coming towards your business. So we are looking at investing extra, working very hard, and we still have 2 more days for next week. So the risk is very high.
Okay, Simon, and in a country where the public uses, or more than 70-75% of Kenyans depend on public transport, now that that has been affected, I mean, doesn't this have a further complex on the economic growth, since there will be no people who are working, and in an environment and a setup like Nairobi County, where according to the governor, they have lost half of their daily revenue, about 30 million Kenya shillings?
Well, as you know, public transport is a facilitator of economic activities. And, you know, when you look at it, many people have missed their obligations. You know, if you are not transported to work, to go and be involved in an activity that generates income, that by itself describes a loss. So, you know, it's pathetic that our demonstrations or our mandamanos cause fear to Kenyans who would probably not want to get involved in it, want to go to you know, areas of work to build the economy. One is that, you know, without us providing transport, then there is no economic activity going on, because the movement enables those who are using the service to be able to be involved in work that will generate income for themselves and also taxes for the government. So these are effects that probably some people might not understand, but they should know that the effects actually replicate itself to even their own livelihoods. Because if the government is unable to provide services due to non-collection of taxes because of no activities that probably would, you know, make them be taxed. So it's terrible. You know, when I talked of hundreds of millions, that is directly affecting those who are operating transport. But the ripple effects of other areas that use the service is much more than that. Okay. Because, you know, more than 80% of Kenyans use public transport to get to their places of work or their places of businesses. So this has got to be looked at very seriously in terms of, you know, the effects. Those who are organizing for demonstrations should actually sit down and analyze. Do they mind about Kenyans? Do they mind about those people whom they say they're representing? Because the effects mostly would go down to the downtrodden people, the lower class of Kenyans and the middle class. And these are the things that they should think before, you know, organizing mandamanos that affects the economy. If this is political, then I wish they would go into a field and, you know, be involved themselves there without affecting those who are involved in what makes them even have money in their pockets. Politicians depend on the taxpayers, and if the taxpayers are unable to execute their responsibilities, what happens? They'll not even have the money in their pockets. This is anarchy, I would call it.
Okay, Simon, when you talk about the responsibility and the way out, which you say they should address their issues out there, and the impact this is having on the taxpayer, who at the end of the day, the government, and the same politicians bank on in terms of their support and for mandate, other alliances and organizations have called upon the president and the opposition chief, Raila Odinga, to reach out to each other to forestall further consequences of the protests and the grandstanding by both ends of the party. As an alliance, an organization, as the business personnel, do you as well call unto them to rethink their positions and reach out to each other for purposes of political and economic stability?
I believe so. I believe so. You know, what is happening is that these are things that could be sorted out. But apparently these are personal interests. They're not interests of the Mwananchi. I mean, you know, definitely you can see it. These are power people are looking for. Now, when they involve Mwananchi, probably who has no much information on the same, what happens? This creates anarchy. What will happen? We'll go into a banana country. If you look at countries that have gone through this, they have never been able to recover. So Kenyans should know that we are trending on a wrong path. If this happens, the next day you don't have food in your table, what would you do? You'll go to your neighbor and, force yourself into them. I think politicians should look for power from the people than to use the people to put them in a way that is not lawful to get to power. One is that politicians should take this out of involving the public or mwananchi or the people who are hired to get to these areas of disruptions. So what happens is they need to rethink. If they want power, let them not destroy a country. They'll not have a country to rule, because we've seen many countries. Let's look at our neighbors, which has never gone back to where it was even at that particular time. So Kenyans should watch and see that it's us who will suffer, not them. You realize that most of these people are involved, or who are organizing this, their children are not here. They are schooling abroad. They are not in the demonstrations. They are not hurting like the rest of Kenyans. So Kenyans should wake up and know that we should not be used. We say no and no. We get involved in economic activities. Let them take their political activities outside, not to use us and the poor children's, poor people's children to demonstrate.
Okay, Sami Karanja, coming to you.
Yes.
Then as a stakeholder, and earlier on you talked about the ripple effect, downward the trend of the chain that forms the medium, small and micro enterprises. Further, can this then decrease the investor confidence in the country, who will look from the perspective of the political instability, which might also have effect and consequences on the operations as well in the country?
Yes, Ayub. You know, the confidence of investors is the stability of your political arena. And so when you look at a destabilized political arena, it chases away, or it makes, you know, investors, even from within. Let's not even talk from investors from outside, even from investors from within. And I can give an example with an experience that we had, I think in 2007. We had investors who had invested in Kisumu. It's in the public domain. And they had invested in Kisumu, and they were employers in Kisumu of hundreds and thousands of people in Kisumu. And you remember the anarchy that was in the country. What happened to the investors? They left Kisumu and many other parts of the country. So when you're looking at the instability of the political arena, it brings a ripple effect up to even the people, you know, who are supposed to be employed. When you look at the micro, small, medium enterprises sector, is the highest employer in this country, is the highest employer. We are talking about 14 million people, 7 million direct businesses, even you count 2 people per business. So we contribute to 50% of the GDP growth every year. So if, for example, the Central Bank of Kenya is projecting probably 50% or maybe 3.5 or 5%, you know, GDP growth, 50% is contributed by micro, small, medium enterprises. So what will happen in this financial year? We are going down. We are looking at deficits. We are looking also at a bloated, you know, government. So we cannot be able to foot our bills as a government if we continue with what is happening. And I think, as Mr. Kibutai is saying, and also my panelists here are saying, we are saying that we must be patriotic enough to sit down as Kenyans and decide this is the avenue that we are going to take. We do not want to be taken ransom by people who are selfish. Okay. We don't want to be taken ransom and put, you know, and taking us through the anarchy way. We must be able to sit down and agree, even as leaders, you know. It is not who won, who didn't win. We are all Kenyans, and we are building this country. And let me say this, Ayub, as I finish. As leaders, they must know power is transient, whether you're in the opposition or whether you're in the government. And what is going to remain is this country. Let us be patriotic enough, and I echo that again, so that we can be able to build our economy. We are in a very tricky position as an economy in this country. We are the powerhouse of this region, but we are being overtaken. All right. They are even, you know, in the region, there are countries who are even sidelining us and saying, why can't we also trade amongst ourselves? And, you know, we were the big brother in this region, and it's being taken away from us. Why? Because we have leaders who are not thinking about tomorrow, and that's very unfortunate. Okay, and we'll talk about that and the economic stability, because that's largely political, and the conduct of the establishment, because the constant element in this equation are the Kenyan people. Yes. The others are variables, because for powers you have mentioned, and the sovereignty lies with the people of the Republic of Kenya. When we get back from the break, Kevin and Boniface, I'll still seek your account as we go deeper into the discussion, and a discussion that revolves around the cost of demonstrations in the country, as the opposition maintains that they will continue holding anti-government protests in the city and around the country. On Monday, the opposition
started what was deemed as pushing the government to meet its irreducible minimums of reinstating the Cherera 4 as per the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, addressing the cost of living and also opening the servers of the elections held in August last year. But stakeholders are concerned that the consequences will be severe and huge, and that the weekly protests will make the ailing economy worse off. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya. At Ayub Abdikadir. We are back after the break. Stay tuned.